Okay, Bruce, we are recording, and we haven't. I guess we took a summer vacation on how does this make sense? Either that, or we were afraid that there were so many things out there that weren't making sense that we didn't want to talk about it because we would be afraid of not making sense.
Again.
So, again, I know, and the fact that we actually
again, right?
the fact that we actually have 4 or 5 people that have asked us, "When are you going to do this again?" says to me, how does that make sense? But anyway.
But we have. I've had people ask me when we're going to start back up. So
Yeah, I have too, which is it's great to be loved, or mocked, whichever,
or even liked a little.
or even liked a little. Yeah, no, I like being liked a little, and some of this sounds like a little bit like old news, and some of the things are a little bit scary, not scary, but kind of crazy to bring up because there's so much angst out there. But a few weeks ago, and this is not an issue going away, Facebook, and frankly, the platform we're using right now in large part. There's an awful lot about control of speech, control of hate speech on Facebook, and all of them, I think most all of the major companies and major brands out there have been or are going through a boycott of Facebook where they will not advertise until this is all figured out related to controlling hate speech. And on the surface, that sounds like sort of a lofty thing. But I think there's probably some slippery slopes there. Anyway, I'll bounce it to you because I know you're never short of an opinion on things.
Well, that darn slippery slope thing. Yeah. Yeah. Listen, years ago, we had talked about the difference between a boycott and a girlcott. A boycott is where people stop doing business with you. A girlcott, we had talked about, would be when you do more business with the company. You focus more energy towards it. But in this case, we're talking about Facebook and a boycott, and my general feeling towards this is, it's a problem. I don't know how to deal with it, but the fact that there's a level of anonymity, or even the fact that you have friends within your friends group, your 200. Now, anybody that claims that they have more than 10 friends, means that they don't know what the term friend means.
Yeah.
For starters, okay? So when Facebook says friends and you look at your list of friends and it's 200 or 400 or whatever the number is, clearly they're not friends. In many cases, they're not even acquaintances because they're friends of friends of friends. I mean, I have names that are quote unquote friends that if they stood next to me, I know I couldn't recognize them. So,
and they have no problem correcting you either for your.
Well, that's the point. They're very quick to go in and share a very adamant opinion, or jump on somebody that shares a thought. And in many cases, these people are either, they sound like Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity on the one hand, or, pick your MSNBC person, on the other side. What's her name?
Rachel Maddow.
Rachel Maddow, that's it. But it's not often polite debate.
Yeah.
It's not thoughtful. It's not informed. And generally what I do is scroll by.
Yeah.
Because there's no way I'm going to play moderator. That doesn't work either.
I'm writing this down because I'll probably take credit for what you just said. You just said something brilliant at the end there. Not that the rest wasn't brilliant. Scroll by. Scroll by. What did your mother used to tell you? There used to be sort of like a sticks and stones thing, or ignore, or be above it, but scroll by. And I find myself sometimes scrolling by really, really quick, and it only becomes like a cartoon of like really ridiculous stuff. one thing after another with an occasional slice of pizza thrown in there. And then I'll stop and go back and look at the pizza and say, that's kind of interesting. But going back to these companies, what I find there's, kind of really fascinating when they say, well, we're going to boycott because of these hate speech. We don't want our ads next to where there's hate speech or their interpretation of what hate speech is. And I'm thinking, but the algorithms are pretty sophisticated. So if your ad is near your so-called perceived hate speech, that means that's where your customers are. So what does that tell you? That's where your customers are. And, I think there was a Supreme Court justice, I forget who it was, a number of years ago when they were debating about pornography. And I can't define it, but you know it when you see it. And sometimes that's the case here too. And, I think the other question is, do you really want to put the power into the hands of the tech titans, to Mark Zuckerberg and all these others and their folks or whoever they're hiring to be the ones who are purveyors of what's the right thing to say and the wrong thing to say? There's something to be said about allowing an idiot to sound idiotic so that you know what idiocy is and you can deal with it.
Yeah, I you know what? I think we have become tone deaf. I think there is this, I don't think we understand or have the ability to discern untruths and idiocy. And, it's one thing to do embellishment and exaggeration. We all do it every day when we talk to friends, neighbors, random people. But the idea that we have an ear for hate speech, I know it when I see it, as you said, for pornography. And by the way, these companies, more importantly, these companies don't want to be associated with those hate speech, but they don't mind if those people buy their products.
Exactly.
They're not going in and saying, if you said this, you can't have this.
Yeah, you can't come here.
You can't have Bounty. You know what? You can't have Clorox wipes. You can't have Purell if this is the way you talk.
Right.
Of course, they don't want, Cheerios associated with these people. But I'm sure some of them eat Cheerios, man.
Yeah, they're not going to say no to the sale.
And with bananas sliced in.
With bananas sliced in. I keep going back to your comment about scroll by. It's interesting. You and I were talking about this a moment ago. I just finished this book. It's called Dare to Speak. And it's written by a young woman by the name of Suzanne Nozzle. And I had the pleasure of meeting her like once or twice when she was in at Dow Jones Publishing, the Wall Street Journal, in the strategic area. She also worked in both the Obama and Clinton administrations and also within the State Department for the UN. And I say that for a reason, because when you see a title called Dare to Speak, you could immediately think, oh, is that something coming from some kind of, right-wing person or whatever. But, she has a very interesting, it's a little bit wonky, but it goes into quite a bit of detail of what we're going through right now with a lot of the wokeness, where it's appropriate, where it's kind of misutilized and so forth. And she gets towards the end, she doesn't have solutions, but she brings up the whole notion of Facebook and what's going on. And, this whole thing about what do you deal with regards to this, but it seems like where she heads with this, and it's probably leading to another book, is that be careful of what you shut down, because you may end up having a bigger problem. Because you can say you're getting rid of what you think is hate speech. And by the way, your hate speech sometimes can be interpreted as something that really isn't hate speech. It gets into some things that get very, very into a lot of different gray areas. But you said, but if you suppress it, it's not going away. It's going to manifest in other things, and it can manifest in some things that are really ugly. So better to sort of let this happen. And I keep going back to thinking Facebook was originally there for people to make a bunch of comments, and the more they try to control it, it kind of goes against the sort of the original mission. But there's also some thoughts in here about maybe you start to think about it as like a town square. you post different things like in the old days, you know, out in the town square, and some of those things are not going to be comfortable. You're not going to like it. There's going to be a post built for something you don't like. And there is a certain line you don't draw. You don't go on there and say, go kill people or whatever. But, you know, if it was up to me, I would err on the side of being pretty open relative to that platform. And to your point, really, really thinking seriously about a mentality of, you don't like it, scroll by. You don't like what just years ago, you don't like what's on the television because some of the stuff's too sexy or whatever, turn it off, don't watch it, you know?
Change the channel, right.
Change the channel. So does that make sense?
The idea that we want billionaires deciding what free speech is, or for that matter, our politicians deciding what free speech is, or what hate speech is terrifying to me. While I have no idea what the solution is, I don't want those people making those decisions. That much I'm sure of.
And, you know, I keep going back to a lot with the founding fathers who seem to know a lot about what made sense 250 years ago or however long it was, when they knew what it was like to have suppression and not being able to say certain things and what that led to. So anyway, I don't know if we solved any world's problems here today, but at least it's interesting talk, and I think it made sense.
Right, and if you're not interested, scroll by.
Scroll by. All right, man. Talk to you later.
You got it. Bye.